Cool. Should we get into it?
I think so.
I think so. Well, good morning, Boots.
Good morning, Tom.
It feels so early, but I mean, it's 10 a.m. That's pretty early to be on camera and recording. I don't know if I've even left my morning voice yet. I think
that's okay. It's a little treat for the audio listeners.
Ooh, yeah. Good morning. Time to get up and eat pancakes. You want some coffee?
Ooh. That's nice. I like that.
Wait, what kind of podcast we making?
I know.
Yeah, so I'm still hydrating. So please bear with me. But, you know, some things haven't changed. One of those things is I'm still Tom.
And I'm still Boots.
Hell yeah. And we're coming at you. We're live with each other, but there's no way you're hearing this live. We got to filter this out. We're not just going to throw it out to the masses like that. Well,
you're not ready for that?
No. Boots, do you know what today is?
Today is Super Bowl Sunday.
It's Super Bowl Sunday, and as a Philadelphian, me is the one who is that. You know, my team is in the Super Bowl, the Eagles. So naturally, today's podcast is going to be about deer.
Perfect. I think that lines up super well.
I think so. Specifically, white-tailed deer. And, you know, today is going to be less of like, I feel like we have these rules in life and in this podcast to break them. And
exactly.
today we're going to do that. We're going to break some rules, but not really. I think what we're here to do is start discussing the human animal, which is definitely a player on this planet, wouldn't you say?
I think they're a pretty big impact right now, as of right now.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about white-tailed deer in New England and the relationship the human animal has had with that deer in as far as reassessing kind of our perspective here on the human animal migration patterns and these large-scale migrations that have kind of melded people together and some of the overall environmental impacts that had. So let's get into it. Boots.
Yes.
What do you know about white-tailed deer?
I actually don't know a whole lot.
That's fair.
It's actually a species that's not pretty common around me. I'm more used to mule deer. That's the one that I actually see quite a bit of. That's the other day. I just saw some deer while running, but it was a lot of fun.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, but white-tailed deer, I don't know a whole lot about. I know that they're a pretty prized hunting animal. People really like saying, like, oh, we're getting after the white-tailed bucks, but...
is that what you say every morning when you get up? That's what I say.
Yeah, you say, I don't get this bread. I get this white-tailed buck.
Hey, we're going to go out tonight, try and get a little bit of that white-tailed buck, huh?
It's just a catch-all for everything at this point for me.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot, though. I do know that they are a somewhat migratory species. Mostly reside in forested areas, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'd say that's reasonable.
But, I mean, I know they're grazers. They're, they graze on plants, little munchies there. Little munchies. But other than that, I'm not too familiar actually with the white-tailed deer.
Wow. Well, you're in for a treat.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'd say that was all pretty accurate information. I mean, white-tailed deer, they can really hang out anywhere. As a Pennsylvanian who grew up in the suburbs, it was like white-tailed deer city. Like, I'll go for walks in the evening by my parents' house and, you know, see these little herds, little groups of like 5 deer, big ass bucks, just in people's yards, and it's there's a lot of houses and a lot of people there, but you know, the suburbs can make for a pretty good habitat for these deer because a lot of what they eat you mentioned the forest, and that's absolutely true. Deer, forest, they go hand in hand. I think we all know that.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing they like is the forest edge, because that's often where they have a lot more of their food. You know, some of the grass, sticks, berries, bushes that they like to nom on, fungus and whatnot. So, you know, places like the suburbs make for ripe deer habitat. And of course, you know, we'll get into this later, but obviously a decent amount of that habitat is being removed, forest and whatnot. So that's going to push them more and more into the suburbs. But yeah, I'd say that was a beautiful retelling of some information. So okay, let's set the stage here.
All right.
You've never been to the upstate New York. You've never been out east, right?
The only time I had ever been out east, if we don't count Florida.
We don't really count Florida for most things in the pot. Just kidding. We could count Florida. So you have been to the East Coast. You've been to the
East
Southeast.
Coast was, I think, I went to Washington, D.C. in the 5th grade.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, my aunt used to live out there.
Who was president when you were in the 5th grade?
That is Obama.
Yeah.
That is like first term Obama.
First term Obama.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
First term Obama. We actually went out there for the 4th of July. It was pretty fun. It was pretty crazy, actually. Like, just seeing all that stuff and then the big fireworks show. But that's like the only...
those fireworks shows, they rock.
Yeah, I say it was pretty cool. I bet you had some really cool stuff with like Philadelphia and such. You know, being
freaking
a little
go birds. Yeah.
Yeah, go birds. That's the more important. The Declaration of Independence. Who?
What? It's
all
here.
About Philly and Rocky.
Philly and Rocky. We got that bell with a crack in it, which seems to be pretty important to people.
Yeah.
Which is very
you ever
cool.
seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've seen it many a times. You know, you go. For me, you know, that's my backyard. I just walk on through there.
That's cool.
I know.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to setting the stage.
Yes.
It's so early.
It's early. We're getting our tangents out of the way before we start digging into
that's
the
what
material.
we're gonna do. That's probably the last tangent we'll go on, I bet.
I think for the rest of the season.
Yeah. And I hope you enjoyed that's it for the tangent minute. So, okay, so we're in New England, and let's think New York.
Okay.
And you've heard of a little place called Manhattan, Brooklyn. Those ring a bell?
I think they do. Not the Liberty Bell, but they do ring a bell.
That's true. That's true. New York, you know, you've heard of Madison Square Garden, the Yankees. None of that stuff's here yet. We're talking like, let's go back to 1500s, 1600s, and we'll go back before, you know?
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so like, this place is just covered in forests. You know, it's just, there's a river, there's a forest, there's this Hudson, and people are at peace, right? And who's up there but native tribes? And I have some of those native tribes written down. So there's, you know, the Erie tribes, Lenape, Mohawk, Mohegan, Mohican, Owenda, Odonga, Seneca, a bunch of tribes. Maybe we'll have to come in and do a deeper dive on the tribes there.
Okay.
But so they're just there, and everybody's living in harmony basically. Tale as old as time.
Exactly.
And what do you think their number one source of protein is?
I'm guessing it's the white-tailed deer, based on context clues.
Boots, your intuition never fails. It's white-tailed deer. Yeah, so they're big hunter-gatherer tribes, and there is no lack of food there. And let me tell you about these hunting strategies. So what they had a bunch of hunting strategies, the native people in the area. So one strategy I thought was pretty cool. So they would take like 100 people plus, and then they would space everybody out like 2 paces, right? So, or 1 pace, which is about 2 steps, right?
Okay.
And so what they'd do is they'd set it up and everybody would have sticks or hollow bones, and they would they would tap the sticks, the
Okay.
tap and sticks, right?
Yeah.
In order to drive a bunch of animals out
Mm-hmm.
and catch them in snares and kill them.
Okay.
Yeah, sometimes they would do it up to a body of water. And in this way, they could, like, you know, in one hunt, they could come back with, like, 17 deer, a few bears, some wild cats.
It's a big haul.
It's a big-ass haul. Another strategy they had was to actually make forest fires. So I read one instance of them making about a 17 square acre forest fire and pushing the animals out that way.
Okay.
And getting a pretty big haul, which is crazy. I mean, could you imagine if someone like did that today, started a forest fire so they could catch a lot of animals? How do you think that would go over?
I don't know. I mean, the fact that there's forest fires starting with gender reveal parties is always, you know, it's the progression of time.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I think forest fires are always started by some wild. I remember this one forest fire story in Colorado where some forest ranger was burning love letters and started a big one.
Oh, buddy. That's funny.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yes. A lot of hunting strategies. It's pretty interesting that they just so did one tribe do one strategy, another tribe do another, or was it kind of like shared practice?
I think it was a shared practice. I think one thing we're gonna find throughout this podcast, and an area I want to grow in, is like having these Eurocentric viewpoints. Like, this is all based on a paper. Most of this episode will be based on a game research from the 50s.
Okay.
So they're not really breaking down the tribes and each of their individual practices. Which, yeah, I hope throughout this podcast we're going to be able to kind of start cutting through the Eurocentric view as we kind of trace this animal history.
Mm-hmm.
Because, yeah, I mean, Europeans are they're such late in the game, fairly recent time. And they've only been in North America for a fairly recent time, so the history's only going to go back 500 years there, whatnot.
Yeah, pretty
much. And not to mention the significant, ecosystem impact that I think we'll be unraveling throughout this episode and throughout more of this. But to go back to the hunting, what I find interesting is okay, so the tribe's able to go out and kind of bring back a lot of animals and, actually do forest fires, create a forest fire, a controlled burn, to catch their prey. So I think it's really interesting how they had just a more more synchronicity with the land there. Once you get Europeans into the game, it starts to fall apart big time. And obviously now we have things like hunting seasons and tags.
Yeah.
And a lot of strict rules on how you would catch those animals. And obviously, it clearly conservation has worked. Efforts have worked for white-tailed deer. I mean, ask anybody driving in the East Coast. There's there's plenty. There's no shortage. What we'll be kind of looking over here is pretty much what problems did occur with the deer and what actions were taken to treat the symptom, I suppose, of the changing ecosystem. The population is mainly in North and South America, right?
Okay.
And their population spread all the way from the Arctic Circle down through the beginnings of South America, within 18 degrees of the equator.
Okay, that's pretty big.
So they're pretty robust population. They're spread over most of this country with some exceptions, like you said, kind of in the Southwest. That seems like where they kind of aren't, but certainly there's super dense populations out east. And okay, quiz time. What state do you think has the most white-tailed deer?
As of today?
Yeah. So we're gonna do time travel. What state has the most white-tailed deer?
Do I get 3 guesses?
Yeah, you get 3 guesses. How'd you
Okay,
know?
perfect. I work off genie rules for like most of my life choices.
Genie rules. Yeah.
Genie
Is
rules.
that
Everything
like
has to be in rules
an
of
aunt
3.
of yours?
Mm-hmm.
Genie, Aunt Genie.
No, but I do have an Aunt Beanie, so that is the actual.
Okay, we'll
So,
see.
yeah,
all
close.
It's all coming together.
All right, white-tailed deer populations,
Mm-hmm.
largest ones: Ohio,
Okay.
North Dakota,
Okay.
and Arkansas.
Those are all great guesses. And, I've never been to Arkansas, but I've been to Ohio and I've been to North Dakota. And I saw white-tailed deer there. So
All right, perfect.
definitely want to give you like a gold star. But that's it.
I was gonna
not
pat
exactly
myself on the
Nate.
back there.
I mean, I want you to do that and I want you to feel good, but I'm also not here to deceive you.
Okay, so what state is it?
Texas.
Is it actually?
Yeah. 5.3 million. And spoiler alert, of the 30 million deer in North America are in Texas.
I guess everything is bigger in Texas.
Amen, brother.
Yeehaw.
Yeehaw. That's why I only send nudes from Texas.
That explains so much of why so many people are moving to Texas right now.
Exactly. So one strange thing. One other name for the white-tailed deer is the Virginia deer.
Okay.
And you think it'd be called I feel like they should just give it to Texas.
The Texas deer?
Yeah, because there's so many.
Okay.
Okay, so deer, where'd they come from? How'd they get here? So, it seems like they have an Asiatic origin, and they came down during the last ice age. That was like 18 million years ago? Some shit.
Yeah. Far.
It was either 12 million or 8 million. But we make sure to serve you up the facts on what's this podcast? Made for Walkin. So, and they've been found in the New York area with under 16 feet of sediment, which indicates that they've been there.
Okay.
Does that mean they've been there a while?
Yeah, I mean, depends. Cool thing about soil is that you can actually see major events in history happen within soil.
Yeah.
Especially out in the East Coast, flooding and such with water and stuff. That could also cause big sediment runoff to either get shaved away, so you miss some years, or you get some new years thrown on top.
Okay.
So.
It seemed like they figured that made them think they were there a while. So
that's pretty
That's pretty deep.
Yeah.
I've never been 16 feet underground.
I mean, I have.
Yeah, I guess a subway cave system. Okay, actually, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Never mind.
We're not that old.
No.
So the fossils that they find under those soils, right? Are they the same white-tailed deer that we're seeing today, or are they some kind of ancestor that they can trace the genes to?
To my knowledge, they were white-tailed deer.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't realize how old they were as a species.
Yeah, I think the game is they've been here a while. I mean, yeah, it's their ancestors that migrated in. And one thing that helped is there were less predators here in North America. And so their sneakiness and quickness served them pretty well. And of course, when we're starting these stories, there were more predatory animals out there. I'm guessing, still had some East Coast panthers, the mountain lion. I'd say bring them back.
Yeah.
Wolves and whatnot. Yeah, I want to bring back mountain lions in the East. There's rumors, though. People say they're still there. And cats are pretty good at hiding.
The Penn State mascot is based off of that, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was the same for our Springfield Cougars. We were the Cougars. But I feel like you shouldn't get to have that if your state hunted the animal into extinction, you shouldn't be able to use it as your mascot.
That's fair.
Unless you want to bring it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Back to the hunting methods, I did want to add. So they either, I think I mentioned that they either drowned them or choked them. Yeah. So large bodies of waters really came in handy. And they had all kinds of like spreads on how many people they'd have, and they would do similar snares with, at like 1,500 to 2,000 paces. So crazy stuff. So pretty much like Europeans start getting involved in upstate New York. It's the 1700s. New York wants Vermont. Everybody's fighting. There's British people. There's other people. And it's getting crazy out there. And people in New York are kind of blown away. There's so many freaking deer. Like, buds, we're going to eat good. And I think people were just like, okay, let's just shoot them all.
As one does.
As one does. And basically, they just started shooting all the deer and doing another thing. Are you okay? Is there a ghost in there?
My light flickered, and I was like, what the hell's happening?
Yeah. So they're shooting deer left and right. And not only are they shooting deer, but they're chopping down the whole forest. And they're doing that to create farmland and to export wood to Europe. Yeah, the beginning of globalization here in America. Already just destroying us.
Really started day one, like.
Exactly. Yeah. Let's shop local and think global, people. So they've now covered about 75% of New York in farmland. So it's gone from forest land and the mountains. Of course, you have the Adirondacks, you have the Catskills. And, basically they're gone. Well, not all of it, but they just changed it all in the farmland. So they've now removed a lot of the deer habitat. And I think it also made hunting easier because, like I said, the deer do a lot of feeding on those edge habitats. So I think it really made them prime suspects for bullets to investigate their bodies.
Yeah, that's how hunting works. I think it's just a big detective game between bullets and the animal they're shooting.
Exactly. So all of a sudden, it seems like the population starts fluctuating. And I couldn't get exact numbers on what populations were. Often it was just like described as we saw deer all the time, and then we stopped seeing so many deer. But I'd reckon there was probably about like 50 million deer at this point in North America.
Okay. Did they have an estimate on like what it was pre like 13 colonies
right.
USA?
I think if the other metrics I looked up are correct, it would be like in the 50 million.
Oh, so it's like pretty even.
Yeah. But that doesn't last.
Okay.
By the late 1800s, there's like 300,000 deer in North America.
Wait. Really?
Yeah.
Holy shit.
They're all dead.
They really got fucking loose with the triggers.
Clack. Yeah, so they shoot all the deer. Oh, shit. Yeah. So there's 300,000 deer in North America at this point. So like the winters, there's less deer happening. In the 1740s, some of the indigenous tribes are on starvation diets. And basically through the 1800s, that population just drops. The deer were absolutely wiped out in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, which is hard to believe that there were no white-tailed deer in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. So like if they did shoot a deer, that would be like front page news. So yeah, kind of crazy stuff.
And saying that's crazy to think about, especially with like today's metrics of just like everyone like smokes a deer with their car at some point in their life for out there.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you ever hit a deer?
I have never hit a deer before. No,
Yeah.
no. Have you ever?
No, I've never hit a deer either.
My,
Yeah.
my brother's hit a few. He's the
Yeah.
only one. Yeah, he's killed like 3 deer and like 2 pronghorn with cars. I think he has a magnet on him.
Damn. Does he have like a cattle guard on his car?
Nope.
Damn.
One of the deer is actually a funny story. So my brother actually worked at Camp Thunderbird.
Okay. Sure.
He was borrowing a guy's car for the day just to go out into town.
Mm-hmm.
He's driving on like the big driveway to get back into camp.
Yeah.
Smokes a deer and totals the guy's car like right before getting back to
Oh
camp.
no.
Like, oof. Let's see, I think it was a whitetail actually. So
Yeah, probably.
it's all connected.
It's all connected for sure.
Connected. But that's crazy. Yeah, only 300,000 deer in the entire like continental. Is that like including like kind of the west or like states and such?
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit, that's crazy.
Yeah. 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 So the advance of whites. I'm gonna quote something here. The advance of white settlers in the wilderness was accompanied by changes which profoundly affected wildlife. Trees were felled for the construction of homes. More were cut and burned to clear land for crops and pasturage. Thriving trade was developed in the export of lumber to Europe. The opening of the forest canopy by these activities resulted in excellent conditions for game. Encouraged by sunlight, berries, bushes, shrubs, tree reproduction flourished except where kept down by farming operations and burning. The deer responded and were plentiful about the edge clearings. In connection, it is interesting to note a colonial law in 1741, which prohibited now the killing of deer from January through May, but permitted farmers to shoot deer in their cornfields. So at this point, yeah, they're trying to protect these populations, but a farmer can just shoot a deer because it's like eating their corn. So,
Yeah.
I'm going to guess that wasn't profoundly helpful for the species as they lost their habitat and were also kind of baited to those areas, considering two major food sources. The natural food sources.
Deer love corn. That's a big
Deer love
thing.
corn. Deer freaking love corn. So buck law goes into effect in 1912, setting a bag limit where you can only have 2 deer with antlers not less than 3 inches long. So
is that like the start of like the hunting laws?
Right, exactly. So that's the start of hunting laws. So kind of throughout this time, the deers are starting to like, basically, they're kind of disappearing, they're kind of fluctuating, and now people are like, okay, how do we get the deer back?
Mm-hmm.
And so what they started doing is pretty much just making protected lands for the deer. Like, it's like, okay, we know there's a herd of like 50 deer up here, a herd of 50 deer over there. They try to protect these deer, but kind of 2 things go wrong. Basically, it's suspected that there is still a lot of illegal hunting.
Mm.
And they also just didn't have enough food on the land that they gave them. So the populations that they were trying to grow just didn't have the food availability anymore with all the shifting food sources. Pretty much that kind of keeps happening for a good long time. And they kind of stay through that period, kind of, I think, through like the 40s and 50s when a lot of people follow suit and just kind of start caring about the population. And in the 1900s, that's also times when game reports start kind of come into existence, and people have to kind of like report how many animals they're taking, and we kind of see the development to modern hunting today. So kind of, yeah, that's kind of the summary is European people came, they shot a bunch of deer with really no methods of conservation. And there were like no deer, but it's actually a pretty successful conservation story.
I say, because now they're everywhere.
Right. And which actually can be kind of problematic. A few of their environmental impacts would probably be that there's no, they spread a lot of parasites to other animals.
Like, is like whitetail like the species with like deer ticks on them and such?
So they spread deer ticks, they spread other parasites to animals, they could spread them to elk and whatnot. So that's kind of the only downside about there being so many. But basically, it's not too much a problem. They don't have too many predators out there. I mean, that's not true. I mean, coyotes can take down deer. I don't think they hunt like a lot of deer. I think they mostly lean towards like a fawn.
Okay.
And but there's definitely reports of coyotes taking deer and whatnot. Of course, if there were mountain lions in the area, I'm sure they would be eating lots of deer. Black bears, not so much. Maybe a dead deer, maybe a carcass situation, but they're not up there, hunting deer.
So it's like a big human is the hunter still?
Human is the hunter, yeah. And they're definitely kind of like there to feed us. And that's kind of why, kind of what they got going on. I don't know what I'm, yeah, couple. So kind of to go over a little more of the biology of a deer is, you're gonna see deer, kind of the mature bucks can kind of range from, well, not a mature buck, but they kind of range at full grown like 150 to 300 pounds. Immature bucks.
As big as I thought.
I feel like that seemed bigger to me. I feel like they're not that big.
I guess I always just see like big buck deer. I'm always like, that's
big
probably
bucks,
like a 500-pound animal.
They've been recorded like, over 400 pounds, a mature buck. So that is, you could definitely see some big ass white-tailed deer. There's another interesting thing about a herd in upstate New York. There's a herd of Seneca white-tailed deer, I think in Seneca, New York, that has a leucism, which is a reduction of pigment, but it does not give them red eyes like a full albino. But basically, there's just these fully white deer. And scientists don't know too much about why they have like stayed white so successfully, but they think they're from Alabama. Oh wait, I misread that. They think it's because of rampant inbreeding.
I was sitting there, I was like, I don't know why that would. It makes sense though when you say it out loud. If you just said Alabama and kept it there, I've been like,
I don't know how I misread that.
I know
I stumbled through a lot of my notes,
seems...
but I don't know how I stumbled through that one. But like if you've ever seen like white tigers, white lions, white gray squirrels, alligators in the zoo, a lot of them have a leucism, which is those white or more pale alleles.
Okay.
So some interesting things about bucks is they shed their antlers every year.
Yeah, that's actually like a big thing up here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's called shed hunting.
Yeah.
You have to get a license for it. It's actually like instead of going hunting, like you get your tags and then you go out and you shoot the animal and then you get it. Out here in Wyoming, I know it's a very big popular thing where you have to kind of like get a little bit of a license. I think I have never gone myself, but I know a lot of people around me have.
Yeah.
And they go out and they just scavenge like the forest floor for whitetail sheds. Like the horn, or not the horn, the antlers. They just grab the antlers off the ground and be like, "This is mine now," and then they walk away with it. And it's like a pretty big hobby up here, actually.
Heck yeah!
shed hunting is what it's called.
Wild.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, yeah, during the fall seasons, when do they start? The antler. So their new pairs start coming in the spring, and as their new pair come in, you know, if this is a mature buck, their old pair's falling off, and they grow through the summer. And in the late summer, they're velvet sheds. And during breeding season, the bucks use them to establish dominance. You know, who's got that big antler energy.
Mm-hmm.
And they just kind of fight each other with them, which you'd think, you know, I feel like there's a good lesson here, that like if they could like put their, no pun intended, put their heads together to use their antlers against predators instead of fighting each other, you know, I think they'd be a lot safer.
Probably.
I feel like we could, we as men could really learn something from those bucks.
I think so.
Yeah. So that's, I think I'd really like a pair of antlers someday.
Just put them on your head, like right here.
Yeah, I would
definitely.
Definitely kind of like a surgical situation. Yeah,
I think it's practical, and it might be in vogue at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be pretty nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I actually just remembered something I do know about white-tailed deer.
Yeah.
Going back to the very beginning of the podcast. I thought it only impacted mule deer. I just looked it up online. It impacts all deer species. Have you heard of chronic wasting disease?
Is that like how sometimes I wake up and spend an hour on Instagram?
Unfortunately not. It's actually a very big issue now with the, as you said, kind of larger deer population now.
Yeah.
So, chronic wasting disease affects a lot of different species of deer. Mm-hmm. It can even impact elk and moose even. Mm-hmm. But it's kind of insane to look at, and it's terrifying. If you ever look up a picture of a chronic wasted deer, the extreme cases are terrifying to look at.
I'm gonna look it up.
Yeah, you should look it up real quick. It's a disease. It's called a prion disease, which I think is just like a certain strain, such as like SARS or like the flu strains. This is a prion disease, and what it causes in deer is dramatic weight loss. They lose a lot of their coordination, so they start stumbling. They can't stand correctly. And not only do they kind of lose cognitive ability in their brain with more like bodily functions, but they also kind of lose like fear. So they lack fear of like cars, people, predators, things that we had kind of talked about before. But it basically just like kind of eats their brain away.
Sure.
Here, let me see. Because I know the chronic wasting disease, that was like the one thing I do remember in deer, to the point now where due to their like lack of brain functions and such, it has been nicknamed like zombie deers.
Zombie deers.
Yeah, it's like zombie deers. Yeah, and it's a problem, especially because it actually like kind of taints the body of the deer. So predators, any sort of predator species can't eat that.
What happens if they do?
Then it makes them super sick.
Okay.
So it's meat that's gone rotten almost.
Just rotten in advance.
Yeah, it's like a live deer that's rotted away.
Aw.
Yeah, it's a real tragic thing, and I do remember now with like, with high deer populations, it kind of just spreads from deer to deer in the herds, and whole herds can actually, get started getting impacted by this chronic wasting disease.
That's terrible.
Yeah, I just remember we learned about that in class a little bit. I didn't do much in the animal biology. department. But yeah, it's a real tragic thing to see. I say some of these deer, they start starving. They can start growing like cysts and like abscesses on their body.
Mm-hmm.
So they start getting like, and it can affect their like head and stuff. They'll drool a bunch, because the deer is basically just kind of wasting away while still alive.
Yeah.
And it's a real tragic thing that's been occurring more and more recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was like, when you were kind of, I don't know, I just kind of thought of that when we were talking about just like the deer populations. I was like, I think I remember hearing something about the size of the population having impact with chronic wasting disease. But,
Boom.
Yeah,
Wow. Yeah. That's crazy stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I just remember that, but yeah, I just remember because I remember hearing someone calling it zombie deer disease, and I was like, well, I have to look up what the hell zombie deer disease is, because that sounds terrifying.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah. There we go. One thing from our last episode that I want to touch on was we weren't sure which language that the word wawa came from and if it meant goose. It does mean goose, and it is from the Ojibwe tribe.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Little fun fact.
Yeah. You been to Wawa since the
Huh?
last episode? No, you're not. Yeah.
No, I'm in California, so
That's right.
no Wawas for me for a little while longer, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But well, I think that's all I got to say about white-tailed deer for right now.
No, I think I think I learned a lot more about like the history of the deer, which I think is cool, because I just kind of thought they were everywhere, huge population, and just kind of stayed that way forever.
Yeah, I know. It's kind of crazy to think that we almost ran out of white-tailed deer.
Yeah, that's nuts to think about now.
Europeans, stop being so greedy.
Yeah, stop taking every deer you see.
And everything else you see.
That's also, yeah, I think just blanket statement, stop stealing shit, please.
Just like a little respect.
Yes.
All right.
Alrighty then.
Well, tune in next week for, I don't know, we'll talk about something, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, we'll talk, most likely an animal.
Yeah, ooh, big stretch. Big stretch.
It is early morning still.
I know. God. Really interrupted my yoga routine.
Oh, no, you gotta get your, what kind of yoga you do normally?
I don't know. It's a lot of blends of different styles, but we're doing the child pose, we're doing the downward dog, we're doing the lunges, we're doing.
All right, so a little vinyasa, a little yin mixed together.
Oh, look at you! Yeah, a little vinyasa, a little yin.
Yeah. Now I started doing yoga last summer, and
nice.
I love it. I go to the studio here in town.
Heck yeah. Yeah, yoga's the best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, all right, and Tom, until next time, it's been the Made for Walkin podcast.
Thank you for watching. Okay, bye everyone.